Wow, you made it to day 5. You're over the hump. You're more than halfway. Congratulations. It hasn't been easy so far, I know, so keep up the good work. This is a banner day for us because this is a day when you do some specific things related to your research proposal that I think will really help push you towards the final sort of countdown for putting the research proposal together. And as a result, as always, I'm going to suggest that you work from top to bottom. Our objectives for today are to identify and explain what is unique or important in terms of your terms relevant to your study and what do they mean to a specific audience. So you're going to be sort of defining what your important terms are. You're also going to be limiting the scope of your study through your sampling and variable selection. So you've already learned about what a variable is. You've already learned about sampling procedures. Now you just need to think about what you would do if you were conducting your own study on your own topic. You're going to identify limitations of research. In other words, there is no perfect study out there. You would be hard-pressed to find one. So every research study has limitations. How do you talk about that? What are typical limitations? What might be some for a study that you would propose on your own topic? And then you're going to learn how to explain and highlight the significance of your research, the why do we care part of your research. You're going to do this by moving through learning modules like you have every day of this course so far, starting with research limitations and reading this online article webpage called Limitations of the Study. And then you're actually going to read a video. I know that sounds funny, but it's a video that a video that consists of words rather than someone speaking to you. This is a video about advantages and disadvantages of qualitative and quantitative methods. And the reason why I think this is important is because it talks about what some of the disadvantages are for both qualitative and quantitative approaches to data collection. These can be limitations, so it's a good way to start to think about what limitations might be for stuff that you're working on. I'm going to ask you to look at two other things, two other online articles, one on significance of research and one on definitions and terms, both very brief readings. But there is a lot to do. So there are 4 sections that I'm asking you to draft to put in one document for your professor, that's me, and send to me by the end of this day, whatever your time zone is. One is going to be your definition section for your research plan, and what I'm asking you to do is, as much as possible, define any specific terms or jargon or key ideas or constructs that are popping up in the literature. And in order to do that, you have to actually start looking at the literature, looking at what's out there. Now let me talk to you for a minute about what you should be doing related to that. A part of any good research proposal is at least a brief but an important review of the empirical research literature. And by empirical, I mean that this is research literature that actually uses some sort of data. Quantitative, qualitative, I don't care, but some sort of data. And to review literature, you have to find it first. And a way to do that, the easiest way I think for those of us affiliated with Lehigh, is to go to the Lehigh Library online. You just type in library.lehigh.edu. You can see that right up here in the web address bar. And it will take you to this page. And you can do a couple things. You can look for books and journal titles by filling in this field right here. But I'm going to suggest you go to the database finder, and it will pop up this page. And I'm going to suggest that you look at 2 databases. One is called ERIC, E-R-I-C. Here it is, ERIC. It will ask you to log in. Mine fills automatically. Hopefully that works. Yep, it did. Okay. And then you type in whatever your topic is. I'm going to say I'm using all caps. I don't want to yell. Excuse me. Cross-national research. Let's see what we get. It's thinking, it's thinking, it's thinking. Look what I have. All right, I typed in a big thing. What I get are things related to cross-national studies, how single-parent children speak about poverty. I'm going to do reading literacy. as an additional field. So now I've got cross-national research and I have reading literacy. Ooh, that narrowed it down. Now I have 3 articles, one of them from 1993, one of them from 2011, and one of them from 2006. One's a meta-analysis of reading achievement in cross-national research studies and gender differences. One is from 2011, and the idea of test instruments functioning in a single language using the PIRLS, the Progress in International Reading and Literacy Study from 2006 in Germany. Ooh, that's a yawn. At least it is for me. It might be fascinating to you. And then this comparative literacy research in the 1990s. I'm going to just go here. And I'm going to click on this, and I will see what Petra Leitz has to say in the International Education Journal about change in the gender differences in reading achievement. What I am specifically looking for is I want to say, let's say that I'm doing reading literacy, gender, and cross-national. Those are my 3 big areas. This would be a perfect hit. And I could look at the abstract of the article and see whether or not, we'll see what kind of data was being used. This is using several kinds. It's using NAEP data. You can see that here. It's using PISA data. I think that's mostly it. It's looking at the gender gap in reading achievement at the secondary school level. So I've got a lot of information just from this. And if I were to look at these descriptors, these might help me think of how I could look for other research that's related to this. So let's say that I wanted to find more related to gender differences. Well, if that's the case, rather than reading literacy, I would type in gender differences. And let's see what happens. Ooh, I get the one I was just looking at. And then I get this exploration of circumplex structure and bidirectional relationships. Whew. I'm not sure I know what that means, but I could look at it to see what fit. The point is, when you're looking at these databases, you're trying to find literature that relates to your topic and that uses empirical data. And you're trying to get at least a basic idea, even if it's just looking at the abstracts, of what each of these articles, what each of these empirical research studies is saying, so that you can start to summarize. This is what you've spent your whole career as a student doing, is summarizing published research, so that you can summarize published research around your topic and say, look, this is what other people have done before. This is roughly what they have found. These are the areas that they still need to find out more information on, which is why my study is so important. So there's ERIC. ERIC is one way to go. There it is. The other one that I'm going to recommend to you is something called Jstor. Jstor is right here, Jstor, the Scholarly Journal Archive. I'll click on that. And you can do a very simple search by just typing in something into this big bar. Let's do this: cross-national research gender differences. See what we get. Well, looky there. We get, let's see, I want to do newest, so that it goes from the newest to the oldest. I want to add education to this because I want to see only education stuff. I'm going to take out the word research. See, I'm playing with the terms so that I get the things that I want to get out of this. Lifetime earnings inequality in Germany. Let's type in reading and see what we get. The effects of teacher gender on student achievement in primary school. That's actually kind of interesting. And that could be related to reading, math, and reading. Look at there. We also have, let's see, public library information. That's kind of interesting. College enrollment, no, not so much what I was talking about. But let's go back up to this one. This seemed to be relevant to what I was thinking about. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to wait for it to pop up. There's a little spinning circle, which I don't think you can see. There it is. This comes from the Journal of Labor Economics. And wow, it's giving me the whole text. you can see that there we go, an abstract. Using data from a randomized experiment, we find that having a female teacher lowers the math test scores of female primary school students in disadvantaged neighborhoods. Moreover, we do not find any effect of having a female teacher on male students' test scores in math or reading, or female students' reading test scores. So you're going to get some other information about gender and reading and cross-national data. I think there was cross-national data that was involved here. At least that was the idea. Anyway, you can start to build that argument, right? So when you're, and you can start to identify how people are defining cross-national research, or how people are defining gender, or how people are defining reading literacy, and make reference back to those journals and articles. Then I want you to do another section identifying how you will draw your sample. If you're going to be collecting your own data, you need to think about how many people you want to be in your sample, if there are people, if it's people indeed that you're collecting data from. May I suggest that if you're doing a quantitative study, if you're proposing something quantitative, you would want to have at least 30 individuals, at least 30 people in your study in order to have some ability to calculate statistical significance. If you're doing something more qualitative, you might only need one person. So how are you going to identify that one person? I'd like for you to write a section identifying potential limitations for your proposed study. Those are usually methodological weaknesses that are inherent in all study designs. You can specifically focus on issues of validity and reliability, which you learned about in a previous day if you're having trouble. And then I'd like for you to write a section about the significance of your proposed research. In other words, how will your audience profit or benefit from the study? And include some comments about what the significance is for other researchers or practitioners or policymakers. Then put it all together in one document and email it to me by the end of the day in your time zone. If you have any questions, certainly get in touch with me. As always, at the end of the day, can you please leave a reply in here where you talk about what you've been doing, you're communicating with your classmates, even though you're not meeting face-to-face. This is our way to be engaged with one another. So give us some comments about today's objectives or learning or application activities. Ask questions. Respond to other people's comments. Be engaged with your peers. And enjoy day 5.